Where's all this info coming from? Well, it's from a staff paper published by India's Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, or CERC.
To really get what's happening here, I want you to picture this. Imagine India builds this incredible multi-lane superhighway just for clean energy. The potential is just massive, right? But what happens if all the on-ramps are blocked by cars that reserved a spot but never even turned on the engine? Well, that's pretty much the exact situation we're looking at.
And here it is. This is the size of that traffic jam. Over 45,000 megawatts of renewable energy capacity. It's either been approved for grid access or is just sitting there, waiting in line. To put that into perspective for you, that is more than the entire power capacity of a country like Spain. All of it, just stuck.
So how on earth did this invisible traffic jam even happen? Well, the answer, as it so often does, comes down to paperwork. Specifically, the difference between two really important documents.
Okay, so you've got the letter of award, the LOA, and the power purchase agreement, the PPA. The easiest way to think about it is this. An LOA is like making a reservation at a super popular restaurant. You've got a table held for you. But a PPA, that's the actual, paid-for, non-refundable ticket to a sold-out concert. You are locked in. And what are they reserving with that LOA? They're reserving this thing called grid connectivity. It's basically the right to get one of those on-ramps to literally plug your power plant into the national grid so you can sell your electricity. It's a limited, and you better believe, incredibly valuable resource. And here's the problem in a nutshell. Developers could snag one of these valuable plugs with just that simple LOA, the reservation, but they almost never start building until they have the final PPA, the confirmed ticket. So when that final contract gets delayed for months, or, sometimes even years, that precious slot on the grid just sits empty, totally unused, blocking anyone else from getting on.
So just how big is this bottleneck, really? And where is the gridlock the worst? Let's take a look at the data from the CERC paper because it is pretty staggering.
The first thing you notice is just how widespread this is. I mean, it's a nationwide problem. But you can see right away, some states are feeling this way more than others, especially the ones right at the top of this list.
And this chart just drives that point home. Rajasthan is the absolute epicenter, with almost 19,000 megawatts tied up. That's more than the next two states, Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka, put together. And these are prime spots for solar and wind power, but a huge chunk of that potential is just on hold.
The CERC staff paper really frames the issue perfectly with this quote. The whole point here is that grid connectivity is a public resource. It shouldn't be hoarded by projects that aren't ready to go, because that stops the people who are ready from building the green energy the country actually needs.
Okay, so how do you clear a traffic jam this big? Well, the proposal doesn't just, tow all the cars away. Instead, it offers the developers three very different choices, three escape routes to get things moving again.
Option 1 is for the people who are serious. We could call it convert and commit. You can keep your grid slot, but you gotta put some serious skin in the game. A new performance guarantee of 10 lakh, that's ₹1,000,000 per megawatt. And then you're put on a very tight leash, an 18-month deadline to go live with huge penalties if you're late.
Option 2 is pretty clever. Let's call it the ticket swap. So say a company has a stalled project sitting on a great grid slot, but they have another, newer project that's actually ready to build. This option lets them substitute the ready-to-go project into that better grid slot, fast-tracking a project that's a sure thing.
And then there's the third choice, the clean exit. A developer can just give up their grid slot. They have to forfeit their smallest bank guarantee, but they get the other two much bigger ones back. It's a pretty low-paying way out. And the best part? That valuable grid slot doesn't just vanish. It goes up for auction.
Now this auction idea, this is maybe the most dynamic part of the whole proposal. It's designed to create a brand new market to get these empty slots filled by developers who are ready to build and to do it fast.
The auction would have a starting price, a base price of 3 lakh rupees per megawatt. And that number isn't just pulled out of thin air. It's calculated to be about the same value as the bank guarantees that the exiting developer got back, so the system doesn't lose out.
So let's just see how this would actually work. Imagine there are 300 megawatts of capacity up for grabs. You can see here, Entity A bids the highest per megawatt, so they get their full 100 megawatts. Entity B is next, they get their 150. Now that only leaves 50 megawatts, so Entity C, the next highest bidder, gets what's left, and Entity D, well, they get nothing. Simple, right? The highest bidders win.
But, and this is absolutely the most important rule of the whole auction, it is not just about who pays the most. The winners have to commit to getting their project up and running on a really strict timeline, maybe as short as 12 months. See, the goal here isn't profit, it's speed, it's execution.
Okay, so clearing the current traffic jam is one thing, but how do you stop another one from just forming right behind it? Well, the paper proposes two pretty bold ideas to rewrite the rules for the future.
And these two paths forward are really different. First, you have the PPA-only route. This one's simple. Get rid of the LOA option completely. You want grid access? You show up with a signed final PPA. No confirmed ticket, no entry. Then there's the auction-first route. This says all future grid access is granted only through an auction. Make it a market-based resource from day one.
And this really gets us to the fundamental question at the core of this whole thing. As India is racing toward its green energy goals, what's the better play? Should the system have these super strict black and white rules that guarantee only the most committed players get in? Or is it better to have a more flexible system, one that might be a bit riskier but could encourage more players and more innovation to join the race? That is the billion-dollar question.